Policy and Politics with me, Tarun Nangia. As we all know, the economy is going through tough times. And it is in these very times that a new budget is now going to be presented. There are a lot of expectations on the infrastructure side, on the employment side, on the side of manufacturing growth, on the sides of services growth, on the issues of banking. And we have with us today two experts who want to share how this can happen. What are the expectations from the budget? How this country's wheels of economy have to be set in motion. And to discuss this, I have with me Mr. S. Ravi, who has been the chairman of Bombay Stock Exchange and also heads his own chartered accountancy firm based out of Delhi now. And I have with me Rakesh Nangia, who is the non-executive chairman of Nangia, Anderson and Company. Earlier, he also had founded Nangia and Company LLP. So I welcome both of you for taking out time and joining us on this show of Policy and Politics. Mr. S. Ravi, I would request you to lay the ground for this issue.
So this is a very important budget, primarily because this is coming after a very stressful time of COVID. The last 9 to 10 months, the country has gone through a lot of issues of manufacturing, and there was a lockdown, and the revenues were sort of muted, and then there was this whole GDP issue, the growth itself. So this, we are coming out of this period, and I think the budget is going to be a very, very crucial aspect. Though I would like to add that the Atmanirbhar program, which was in 5 series, did give a lot of flavor of the budget that is going to come. But I think it is important that this budget actually focuses on spending. It focuses on actually infrastructure. It should look at reforms. And I think it's a very, very pivotal budget because we have come out of a crisis, or we are coming out of a crisis. So my take on this is going to be a very crucial budget, and I think everybody is focused. All the areas need to be attended, and I think it's a very important budget.
Okay, Mr. Rakesh Nangia, your opening comment on the show.
I just want to add again, give a little bit of more flavor to it. It will be the toughest budget coming at the most difficult junction time, and it will have at the most uncertain economic environment prevailing all over the country and all over the world. The difference is this crisis, this pandemic is global, and in today's interdependent time, when you're totally dependent on each other in terms of trade, services, flow of everything, flow of human being and services. So a lot of tightrope. Finance minister will be a serious tightrope will be there for her to maintain a fiscal balance. At the same time, to give so much of impetus to the economy in terms of whether it is manufacturing, whether it's in growth, whether in terms of employment or anything is concerned. So this budget is extremely crucial because the crisis is global. The pandemic is still worldwide, still prevailing there. Some hope coming at the end of the tunnel, basically. But yet, the finance minister will have a very, very challenging role in playing and seeing the demand, the industry is met, demand, different sectors met, demand, the employment is created, infrastructure spending takes place. So, and some sort of fiscal balance, if possible, can be maintained.
Mr. Ravi, I would like to now ask you, employment remains a key concern in India, and it is also on top of the mind of this government. What will the government do or should do, in your view, to get this employment issue kick-started in terms of that hiring should start to pick up? And any kind of hirings, even the low end, India has a lot of pent-up demand there. It's not really of the engineers wanting to be employed.
So, last budget did address something on employment. in terms of employees getting tax relief for additional employment up to the extent of 25,000 per person. So I think this limit will have to undergo a change, and it has to be increased so that the employers are incentivized to sort of keep employees, because every employer will see the economic benefit, and every employer is going to calculate the economic benefit that is coming to them. And so it is important that incentivizing employment is going to be a very, very key aspect that the government needs to uh, uh, tell and propel the employers to do. And I personally feel that this is possible. And we must not forget the fact that two industries, especially if you look at textiles and you look at hospitality, they were having the maximum about 18% employment together of the total employment that is in the sector. So 18% employment, and these two sectors have gone through a lot of issues. So not only have they to restore this balance, get them back, and also to move forward and see that the employers are incentivized in the hospitality sector, which is a formal and an informal sector both. So I think the key will be how to incentivize the employer by giving incentives to them in various forms. Maybe they should look at these sectors specifically to give more incentives where the maximum employment is happening. So I think it's going to be, and maybe it can be for a year or two, but I think a small relief will really kickstart employment. That is my take on it.
Okay. Mr. Nangia, if you see, hospitality is expected to have a slowdown of roughly 65% this fiscal. 65% may also not come back, is what is estimated, because people's habits to traveling have altered permanently. A lot of people who never use digital platforms have started using them for meetings. So business travel will take a hit. Do you think hospitality industry will take much more time to recover given the current circumstances?
Let me add one more thing here before I answer your question. The hospitality industry provides employment to more than 30 million people, actually. It's much more than that even. If you see the entire ecosystem is concerned. Now, this is the evolution, what you're talking about, Tarun. This is the evolution, the change of the habits, actually, the change of lifestyle, the way we started new technology which has come there. It will definitely going to make a dent on the entire ecosystem of hospitality that cannot be denied. And it is going to take its own time first to come back. And certain things may never come back easily, because this will be the change of the habit and the ease which we've seen in the last 1 year happening, where a lot of business could be done by the technology platform, which earlier could have only taken place because of personal meetings across. So I believe this is the evolution, and this evolution is likely to stay. And here it shows how technology can be a disruptor even. And technology has been a disruptor in so many sectors, so many fields, and in some level, it will be there. And this pandemic is not going to go, the disease is never going to go away, it's going to stay away. We are going to control it only. So you will find a reasonable, a good level of, I can say, the damage or no business coming in hospitality, and they will have to reinvent themselves. There'll be a complete new paradigm shift in the hospitality sector to come out of this challenge where they're going to see a revenue strength on the balance sheet and in the valuation cycles.
Mr. Ravi, I want to ask you, there is a gossip in the market that duties are going to go up. Import duties on certain key raw materials, other things are going to go up. Uh, this is a news. I don't know whether it turns out to be true in the budget. Traditionally, mining, infrastructure projects, highways have been a great employment driver. Do you think the government has money to spend now?
So on the infrastructure side, I have a very clear. The government's focus should be on the infrastructure, because if they increase the spending in this sector and the capex that they will put, it will funnel growth, because with infrastructure there is the cement, iron, and other allied industries which work along with it. So the whole manufacturing sector and even the SME segment, which is dependent on this infrastructure, will start to blossom. So this is going to be a game changer. If you ask me, what singly it is important to focus on is to uh, propel the growth in the infrastructure side. Now the question is, how do we do it? So traditionally there were DFIs which were there. I think it is time to create an infrastructure bank which can borrow long and lend long, and that is what is going to be the key, and that will also reduce the strain on the bankers, on the banking system. So I would suggest strongly that if I were to be asked, I would say infrastructure bank is a very very important component where you can raise money from government, you can raise money from outside India through various bonds, NRI bonds, etc., where you can raise domestic bonds. And I think this is going to be the key to this whole in this budget. I feel that if at all, because there is ports, there are airports, there is highways, roadways, and this is going to be the key. Even we look at what we discussed, Mr. Nangia very clearly articulated the hospitality sector. Even that can sort of stabilize with this growth. Then associated with it is the real estate sector. So once the infrastructure, if you see the trend in the last 10 years, when the infrastructure did not do well, the real estate sector also did not do well. So along with the infrastructure, the real estate sector will also start looking up. And that is going to be the key, because that is another very big place where a lot of people's employments are associated with the real estate segment. So infrastructure, on one side, government must find ways to raise money, not put their own capital, but to raise money, and should have a very definitive mechanism of utilization, and should have a very, very clear budget for infrastructure and create a vehicle through an infrastructure bank, etc. And there are two institutions which are available which can be used for infrastructure bank.
Okay, okay. Mr. Nangia, you have to add anything on the infrastructure point of view?
Yes, I have to add one thing. If government had planned to spend $1 trillion in next 5 years on infrastructure, and the biggest challenge is from where the money is going to come from. In my opinion, the money cannot come from the fiscal side is concerned, but from tax is concerned. You have got a very limited space left there. Second, the biggest challenge of the government is this. In the current year, the total collection of the direct tax to the extent of 2 lakh crore is behind the target area, and it will remain less than the budgeted amount is there. So let's come to the conclusion. The tax will not be the only way the government needs to collect the money for spending on infrastructure. $1 trillion is not going to come up. Government have to put up a complete framework in place to raise money. And this raising of money is very essential because the entire spending will give demand push, and the demand push will give to the employment is there. And then nevertheless, in first money needs a big ticket spending, and you have to have an innovative schemes, tax incentive schemes, issuing money globally. Last year the government has introduced scheme to raise the money globally, internationally, the bonds, global bonds to be issued. I think a novel instrument and some tax incentive instruments where the wide participation takes place will be the key for the government to raise money to meet the infrastructure spending target if they're looking to spend $1 trillion, and if the same target remains with the government in the government books to spend $1 trillion in next 5 years is concerned. So it is totally non-fiscal mechanism. The government will have to look to bring in money for infrastructure.
Mr. Ravi, I would want to ask you, there is news on the market on three things. A, real estate continues to be in a difficult state. So NPAs are going to go up and NBFCs look very precarious. So the condition of NBFCs and banks is set to worsen. In fact, NPAs are expected to rise in the coming year. In the coming fiscal, these things are going to be a worry card for the government, you think?
That is why I use the word infrastructure is going to be very important, because the growth in the real estate sector is muted absolutely. The key to it is, can the government come out with an exemption of stamp duty to a certain value of property? You
Exemption.
see, yes, or a reduction in the rate, give maybe 50%, whatever. So we have to get people to come and buy, and that is what is going to, the real estate sector needs to have that sort of guidance from the government, and all the support. Because what happens is, stamp duty is a very important component of all the buys and sells. So I think if you have at least at the lower level, say a particular value 50 lakhs or 25 lakhs, whatever be the value, they should sort of give an exemption, or give a 50% exemption at least. So that will help the real estate sector. If you see various reports, the real estate sector has starting to look up. And if you see, it is going to look up. The commercial properties are not looking up, but the residential properties in the small cities, the properties are looking up now, slowly. If you see the last 1.5 months trend. So that is one thing. The second thing that you asked about NPS. Yes, NPS will increase, because in the Atmanirbhar scheme, everybody sort of utilized, and there is a moratorium available. The true picture of this will emerge in the next 1 year, because after the moratorium is over, actually the repayments will start, and that is where the true picture will emerge. And I think I agree with you that NPLs will increase, and it is bound to be there. And every bank which should start providing slowly for the NPLs, and the recovery process also should be enhanced. That is the second thing that I have to answer. And I personally feel that this is cycle, and I maintain that after the Atmanirbhar scheme, where SMEs were given this relief, this will, we'll see NPLs in the next year and the subsequent year, and after that only the banking sector is going to stabilize. That is my
One
view.
short, one short repeat question to you, then I move to Mr. Nangia. Do you see any specific industries needing handholding because of these NPAs?
So the NPAs are going to come in the hospitality sector, let me tell you. But what has happened, most of the small hotels have got covered under the Atmanirbhar scheme. So 60 to 70% of the hotels are already covered. I see a problem in the aviation sector again, because that's a challenge. We have been seeing that challenge, and there is an employment associated with it. So what I personally feel is, these are segments. Hospitality is a segment, and the textile industry is a segment which has to be closely watched, because a lot of international orders for export oriented units have been cancelled. So I think that there is a challenge in the textile industry too. So the NPLs are going to be there in that particular two segments. Plus, I feel that the labor cost being what it is, and the competitive market that Bangladesh and Vietnam are offering in the textile industry, we need to counter that with some SOPs, some credit lines, so that we can overcome that competition. So I think there is going to be, unless we come out very with the sectoral reforms as far as these two sectors, we'll see NPLs in that sector too.
Mr. Nangia, I want to ask you, NPAs will even rise if industries are not handheld. In fact, industrialists have been complaining that when the situation is bad, the banks raise the interest rates even more. Do you think this is the specific problem that industries are facing, that when they are doing badly, the interest rates actually go up? And when they were doing good, the interest rates were much better. So this kind of working style by banks is actually affecting industries. Specifically, if you see a lot of coal and mining sectors, the past few years have been tough for them. On the contrary, the interest rates for such companies went up.
See, what happens is, first let us accept this thing, Tarun, we are in the technical recession stage today. The economy is in a technical recession because of the growth rate -7%. Now, let's be the rule of the day. There will be a good number of NPAs the country is going to face and country is going to see in next couple of years is concerned. The 1 year stress of the balance sheet is, in spite of the fact the government being supporting to MSME, and that too to not all the SMEs, but good number of SMEs, as a dosage of infusion or lower rate of money is concerned, additional funding to be given to them, loan to be given to them. This will be a serious problem coming up in the economy, and the country will have to deal with it. Government, in this wisdom, deferred IBC till 31st of March, fearing that there will be a massive delinquency taking place in the business. So, in my opinion, two things before I go to the sector specific, the government must ensure, including keeping the balance sheet of the banks healthy, not because of COVID or pandemic, it should lead to the stress of the business and closure of the business and high level of NPAs. Some extra level of of dosage of funding or interest waiver or interest deferment, which again will have an effect on the balance sheet of the banks, will have to be factored in so that the fallback of closure of business is much more, the NPA is much more fallback on the ecosystem of the country's concerns in terms of unemployment, in terms of bank balance sheet getting stressed, basically, and at the same time, not signifying a healthy position of the businesses are concerned. So this is one matter. As regarding the interest is concerned, that is obviously more on the monetary policy that has different reasons to keep the interest low and high. Yes, government do come and have a need to take an aggressive position to see that at the current time, the interest outgo must be a milder one, and even if it has to be a much concessional one to certain deserving industry, which in a country where 99% of the business are run by SMEs and MSMEs, I think that extra mileage will have to go, government will have to go an extra mile to see to them the business do not go for NPA and the balance sheet of the bank is equally preserved and conserved. So extension of IBC will be one of the things the government must look into this. And at the same time, very carefully, not in no way we can afford a higher interest rate at this juncture is concerned, maybe for next 1 year is concerned. And there will be, we need a government impetus or right direction in the monetary policy.
One final question. Yes, Mr. Ravi.
So I have to add on interest rate. So as the industry struggles, the rating comes down. And when the rating comes down, the interest goes up. Because the banks are working on a risk matrix. So as the risk matrix, the risk increases, the interest rate starts increasing also. Because the credit rating falls down and it becomes non-investable. So this is a thing which I think the industry leaders will have to address it, give it a forbearance for a year. Because what happens is the bankers are sticking with the rating. And what happens, the below a certain rating, they will not come across with a rate, reduced rate. So I think all the banks will have to work on their policy to see that the next year they come out with a solution and we tide through this big problem. So your point is very relevant. The industry is going through a problem and then we have a higher interest rate. So this is primarily because of the rating model that is prevalent in the industry.
Okay, since we are out of time, we will draw this episode to a close, but I would request both of you to take out time post-budget so that we can do a small post-budget analysis and maybe count our hits and misses in the budget, because that is what is most important after the document has been read out, after a week when it has been deconstructed, is when we actually really know what the budget is, not the headlines that are read out in the speech. But the fine print. But I would like to thank Mr. Ravi and Mr. Nangia who spared their time today and joined us on Policy and Politics. Thank you, viewers, for watching this show. I guess you found it useful. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.